Hello, I am Scott Pantel, CEO of LSI, and I am here today with Cristiano Fontana, CEO of Three Bridges, and we're here to have a discussion about what's happening in Medtech. Cristiano, pleasure to see you today.
Thank you, Scott, and thanks for having me here. Very nice to talk with you.
It's a pleasure. So look, I thought we'd get started. A lot of people ask me, you're a partner of LSI's Emerging Medtech Summit, for which we are very grateful for. And a lot of people ask me, what does Three Bridges do? So I thought it'd be helpful if you could just give us a background on yourself and Three Bridges.
Sure. All right. About myself first, I've been in the medical device medtech market since when I started to work. So right after university, my background is 100% on the business side. And then, along my career, I also got an Executive MBA and corporate finance. But I started to work right after my university in the commercialization of medical devices in Italy and Europe, and touching different clinical areas and working as a distributor for big corporations like Bayer, Medtronic, Smith & Nephew, and so on. But I would say my big experience was about introducing new technologies in the different market for smaller type of companies. And then I also had my, let's say, in-person experience as a startup. So I joined right after the incorporation company in California named CrossBay Medical, where I'm still board member. And we develop technology in the women health and took 5 products through the CE and FDA, and had, let's say, 3 or 4 actually licensed deals. And so all these combined, after, let's say, more or less 10, 15 years of career, I decided to move into the consultancy side of the market, and I decided to incorporate Three Bridges. So Three Bridges is a management consulting companies. I always say it's a consulting company, but it's not made by consultants, which means all the people that are in the team are all entrepreneur, or they have made their own experience starting companies, building that, taking the companies up to the commercialization of the products. So they made it their own experience, and we basically help companies, early stage, startup, scale up, small and medium-sized companies to achieve their goals. And with that, I mean, we can provide services from strategic advisory all the way through the regulatory path, fundraising, and up to the commercial access and market introduction. And I put together a team that, a small team is a boutique, but is a team that is located in, all the key areas in the globe. So we have people in US, Europe, Middle East, covering the GCC countries, and Southeast Asia. And so we also try to provide a sort of a global angle. What we try to do is really understanding the gaps that companies have, and try to fill those gaps, giving a sort of a strategic and 360 degrees view, and helping them in achieving their targets and go to the next milestones.
It's really great. And I loved your comment about your team is made up of consultants, but consultants who've actually been out in the market and have
Right. Yeah. No offense to the consultants.
No
I didn't.
No. We need all types. That's for sure. One of the observations that I made just at our meeting this past May was that there were, at various breaks, I would see, people in line to come by and I think connect with you guys and find out what you're up to. And it was largely founders and CEOs of growth stage and early stage companies. What is it that you help them with? Is it, are you helping US companies get into, you've given us a nice overview, but are the companies that you meet at our meetings, are they looking to get into the European market and vice versa? Or what are some of the things that they're lining up to speak with you guys about?
Right. Yeah. Many times it is exactly what you were mentioning, meaning US companies in the early stage, maybe they don't have a global angle right away, or they consider, let's say, in first place, second place, and third place, the domestic market, right? So we try to give them also the ability to increase their reach outside of the US, and which doesn't mean executing right away, because it depends on the phasing, but it's also about let's say having a plan or understanding the potential outside, and show that there is a potential for a certain technology or application also outside of the US, which means that, you know, keeping in mind that the objective is some let's say soon or later having an exit, and you never know when it's going to happen. Of course, statistically speaking, it's probably going to happen when you are in the revenues phase and you can show some traction, but you don't know what is going to happen early. If you can show that you did your homework and you have a plan for, you know, introducing your technology in other markets, and you have a clear path in terms of regulatory reimbursement, you did your market access, let's say, assessment, and you can show that, that's definitely an add-on to the valuation that you will talk about. So that's typically something that with US companies we do. So provide them access to, you know, what their technology can let's say achieve outside of US. Vice versa, you know, we provide access to the US with the FDA regulatory path, especially for the 510K, you know, or de novo, and we help companies in, you know, approaching the US market. We you know, we are again a small team of people right now. We're 12 people, so we cannot cover everything, but you know, our tagline is expertise, network, and passion. So sometimes it's about network. So we can you know, lead to people that really is the right people that can help companies in get what they really need at that specific matter.
Speaking of your network, I know a lot of the companies that, well, many of the companies that come to our meeting, they're looking for commercial partners, they're looking for sources of capital. Do you ever assist companies with connecting them with sources of capital and help with their fundraise, or is that outside of your offering?
Yeah, so we do that. So the first thing we do is we prepare companies for fundraising. Many times people, you know, complain that they're not successful in fundraising, and I always look into the project and say, you know, monies are there. The fact that you're not getting money is not their fault. It must be your fault. So that you need to review your documentation, you need to review your value proposition, unmet need, health economics, and so we help, you know, in setting up all the documents set in order to, you know, prepare at the best, understanding, you know, what kind of investor you should target. That's very important. Many times you don't get money because you're not targeting the right investor for the right amount in the right phasing, right? And so we do that, and then of course we also try to connect, but we are not a let's say a financial advisor. We prepare for that, and then we sometimes we partner with some investment bank or financial advisor in order to, you know, connect with the, you know, different VCs or family offices or that kind. But of course we are part of the fundraising activity, definitely.
Great. So let's shift gears a little bit. As you're aware, we are launching a meeting in Europe. So we will be in London in September, and we're really excited about that. We're excited that you will be a partner of ours, and I'll definitely be tapping into your expertise. You know, you guys have boots on the ground in Europe. Talk a little bit about the difference, the challenges and the differences between the US markets and the European markets. What are some things that stand out to you that CEOs of these early stage companies should be aware of? Just talk about the differences between the two markets.
Right. So I would say the most basic thing that comes in my mind is which is something that I always notice or happening in the majority of time, is considering Europe like one piece of a market, and instead, you know, Europe is composed by many different territories with different rules, different health economic system, and you know, different cultures, and so that's the most important thing. You need to understand and adapt your strategy to the different systems, and you need to understand where, you know, your technology applies better, or let's say fits better in the system, and you have different lead time of introduction of the technology, and it doesn't correlate with how big the territories are. So something that I always tell, I've been a distributor for 15 years, right? And especially in the first 3 or 4 years after a launch a new technologies. I found myself in, let's say, international dealer meeting where the dealer from Slovenia was selling much more than myself, that I was covering all Italy. And Slovenia is as I don't know exactly, but let's say not much bigger than just Milan, right? As a population, is bigger as a territory, and that's why, because it's less regulated. Sorry. So and it takes more time. Then, of course, if you take the same type of ratio and you just postpone it after 10 years, you will see, that Italy, UK, France, and Spain and Germany, which are the big five, will perform, better in terms of volume. So when you're, especially in the early phase, when you're just, like pilot commercial launch, or you're looking, there is a specific phase for me that is, you get the CE approval, and then you think, okay, now I can get revenues, but it's not that simple, right? You need still some clinical validation, and each territory will ask somehow some specific clinical validation from the reference centers of the specific nation, right? And which means, especially for maximize the valuation of the company, sometimes revenues are not the most important things. Revenues are very important, especially for sustain the economically the company. But in terms of valuation, sometimes it's usage or data that you're looking at. So, also understanding that maybe you can get better data or better reference in some countries, that, let's say, faster revenues in some other, it's very important. But these, I would say, it's just impossible to manage it from US. I don't see that feasible. That's the point. So what we try to offer is like, we know the different market. Every time is we need to understand the technology, the value proposition, how it fits in the different systems. But the common part of it is that you need a strategy that will maximize the valuation at each different moment of the company. And this is what we try to, this is one of the main difference. I don't know, others, of course, we are run mainly by public economic system. It's not insurance based. Besides, part of Germany, but Italy, Spain, UK, France, they're all public system. And the HTA, or let's say the health economics assessment around a new technology is completely different. And this will basically postpone, or let's say increase, or the length of the duration for introduction. I can speak now for let's say, just for argument's sake, Italy. The system demands that new technologies, which are innovations, should come to the market at a lower price of the current technology. This is what the system is based on. Mm-hmm. And in order to get a higher reimbursement, it takes a long time, and until you don't get it, you will not ramp up with your sales. You can get some centers, but it takes time. So the public health system has some pros and cons compared to what you have in US. But in terms of introduction of, say, innovations, definitely the lead time is longer. This is right. What I can tell.
So Cristiano, that's really interesting. And as you're aware, we have this meeting, Emerging MedTech Summit, very established in the US. And we've made a big bet that there's a demand for a similar type of platform in a meeting in Europe. We're going to be in London in September. We're completely committed to the program. We've heard from a lot of companies that they want us to come out. You've got boots on the ground. Both the US and the international markets. Any concerns, or have we made a good bet here? Do you think the demand is there for this type of a meeting?
Yeah, absolutely. Also, because if you think about what is great about your meeting is it puts together the different players of the early stage, let's say Medtech and healthcare market, right? So you have innovators, you have strategics, and you have investors. Okay, and all of these, they have different ecosystem between US and Europe. In Europe, you have your European VC, European family offices, and typically, even though everybody is trying to become global, you still have a sort of a preference. If it's not really mandatory, you still have some preferences for something that is closer to you in terms of culture and territories, right? So I think that's why it's important to replicate what you're doing in US. Clearly, in the medtech space, US is always a big target. Reason for the early stage. Reason why is probably the majority of the players in the exit are coming from US, and they're based on US market, right? Because for the economic value, the US market is almost always the big one, right? But on the other side, especially big part of our clients that are not US based, which are European or Asia or Middle East, many times I do not suggest to come directly to US, right? Because they're not ready. They're not ready to speak to US VCs or US investors. They need some step behind in the middle, and maybe replicating that in Europe will grant them and give them the ability to have a different type of audience and people that will talk to and get a better results in terms of interest raised and interactions and follow-up discussion with potential investor and strategic as well. So definitely I'm happy you did it, because I think it's a great choice, and I love that you're expanding the model.
Well, we're counting on your support, and well, again, we'll be tapping into your network. I couldn't agree with you more that there are different, there are a different set of investors, there are different ecosystems. There's some overlap, of course, but it's a totally new ecosystem. Correct, yeah. And what we see here in the U.S. is about 80% of the attendance at our U.S. meeting are folks based in the U.S., and then we get 20% outside the U.S. And we're forecasting a similar type structure where it will be 80% approximately of European ecosystem, but we're going to get folks from the US that are going to be over there. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that shakes out. And but we're very excited about it. And again, we couldn't pull this off without having partners like Three Bridges, excuse me. So we thank you for your support. So a lot has changed. The last year and a half has been just a whirlwind, and many opportunities have been driven out of the current environment. Many businesses have struggled. And one of the things we've observed is that these early stage companies are really great at pivoting and seeing opportunities. We've also observed that some of the big strategics who have a challenge moving more quickly are now looking more deeply into M&A opportunities so that they can stay ahead of things and on the front end and continue with their growth. What in your mind what's the hottest trend? What's the hottest segment? Just in general, what's hot to you right now that you're seeing out there?
So let's say there has been a shift to all the digital therapeutics. I would say the first thing that comes in my mind, all what is related to COVID and what we have been through, let's say, made clear. I would say the first thing that I would say is I didn't see anything new coming out from the COVID. I've just seen things that were already there, but just speed it up because the need has been made clear by the situation that we have been through. That is my right. First
an acceleration answer. Of existing technology. Right?
Absolutely. Right. So everything that relates to, for example, remote patient monitoring. All the wearables that enable to monitor vital signs or communicating with the healthcare providers or physicians without the need of going to the hospitals. All those type of technologies had big accelerations. The problem that I've seen is that, as usual, we are in a capitalistic system where opportunities brings many people trying to, exploit that kind of opportunity. And so we have been floated by all these wearable type of things that, you know, monitor, and even us as a company, we have been in touch with so many that is really tough to understand, you know, what each one stand really out for, right? And that was my first impression. The second one is, even though I could recognize that, you know, those technologies were better, or let's say, again, they were standing out for some technological reasons, or because they were more reliable or accurate, whatever, or replicable, whatever. I always thought, okay, the technology is much more advanced than the health system that will need to then apply that, right, and use it, and that's something that is a misbalance that will need to be fixed in the next future. But there's a huge opportunity, and of course, you know, also on the investment side, the amount of money that, you know, came into the system, where it was huge, and so opportunities are coming out of it. It was even huger, and I definitely believe that, for example, you know, again, remote patient monitoring, everything that is related to AI, which somehow correlates to that, because, you know, you get data remotely, and then you need something that, you know, elaborate those data and provide some answer, right? So, and in terms of, especially in predictive type of answers, and that's I would say the big things. For now is a little bit decreasing, but for the last 50 months, if you didn't put any AI machine learning in your deck, there was something. It was feeling like there was something missing.
Right.
But then, you know, also all the, again, the surgeries, the robotic side of the surgery is increasing, and new technologies are coming. So there's going to be a lot of competition around that, and so there are definitely several minimally invasive technologies are keep going with the same pace. But yeah, those are three, okay, I would say. And then again, the switch to digital therapeutics, because it's more scalable. That's the point from the investor side, right? So there are a lot of VCs that they were just Medtech, now shifting to also digital therapeutics, because they understand that, you know, the length and the duration of the investment for Medtech is much longer than what it could be for digital therapeutics.
Right. And I want to come back to something that you mentioned earlier. You had said that the capital's out there, money's out there.
Yeah.
If they're not getting access to it, well, you know, if they have a good story and a good technology, there's something going on there. Do you think that? And we agree with you. We're seeing this, a lot of capital in the market, investors looking for ideal targets. Do you think that's short term, Cristiano? Do you think that's going to go? Are we in a bubble here with that, or do you see, how long do you see that playing out?
I don't think it is right now. It's not as big as it would be for me to let me think that is a bubble. Yeah. It's just a consequence of first of all, it's just a trend that it was already there. I mean, things that were already increasing. Of course, we've been through a global pandemic for the first time that has been managed by a global capitalism system, and therefore there are some consequences about that. And one of those is that, you know, there is much more attention on the healthcare systems and how healthcare systems are run, and what kind of investment are made to, you know, improve the healthcare systems. But I don't think we're in a bubble. I just think that probably, you know, things are, they will keep growing. There's the only thing that probably will change is of course, more investment, more funds brings more people on the other side, right? So it's all about demand and offer. But I think that also the type of offer in terms of innovation will get better and better, and this will be a consequence of so the funds are not, let's say, spread in a equal way, right? I see companies raising much more than before, but not, and somehow, so the total amount of deals in terms of value is growing, but not correlated at the same with the total number of deals, which means better companies are raising more, right? So that's what I'm expecting. better companies will raise more, and not necessarily more companies will raise. That's or not in a proportional way. That's what I'm expecting.
Right. That's really interesting. Yeah, we believe that we also see a lot of money in the market. We've also seen a lot of new investment vehicles. You know, I was a big skeptic of this crowdfunding concept for many years.
Oh,
but what we're starting to see in the U.S. is it's really this regulation A+, where companies can raise up to $75 million a year. It's really beyond crowdfunding. And we've seen some companies in medtech. In fact, you'll hear about a few at our conference coming up in May that have embraced this idea, and they're going for it. And it really is there's some sophisticated capital raise vehicles that leverage crowdfunding. And have you observed any of that? Is that something that you've taken a look at?
Well, actually, I'm a partner in a company called ClubDealOnline in Italy, and it's basically crowdfunding, but it's not for the crowd. This is also the tagline, which means it's a private club deal for high net worth people that so the minimum ticket is not like in the crowdfunding that people can invest whatever. There is a minimum ticket, and then it's a closed system, but let's say takes or keeps all the advantages of being 100% online, right? And I'm working a lot with them, selecting companies from the medtech, and actually we have right now in place couple of companies that are raising funds successfully. So I definitely see that that's something that could be in parallel, helping companies probably before they're ready to be attractive for institutional type of investors.
Right.
And so I'm not a strong believer as far as medtech is concerned of the generic crowdfunding. Reason why I always explain to our clients that people that invest on crowdfunding typically invest to something that they could be clients for, right? So if you have an endovascular catheter, probably you're not gonna come across too many clients, even patients, right? But even patients, they would not really appreciate the value proposition, right? So I try to keep them away from the crowdfunding as much as possible, also for the implication on the later rounds and when the institutional are coming. But there are some, as you said, there are some new type of models that I would say they take the benefits, the pros of reaching in a different way, much more private people. So kind of business angels, which are not already organizing in groups, and maybe they avoid downsides of these generic crowdfunding. So I definitely see some space and on that side.
Yeah, we see it. We see similar. We have similar views on things, and we're seeing, again, you'll see a couple companies at the meeting, at least a handful of companies rather, at the meeting in May that are using Regulation A+ here in the U.S. to raise some substantial amounts of capital. So it's an interesting time for sure. Well, I really appreciate you taking some time with me here today. Again, we are so thankful for your support of the meeting. We try to align ourselves with groups like yours that help these companies raise capital, get to market. So at the end of the day, we can change the world and help patients. And you're a big part of that. Looking forward to seeing you in May. Before we wrap this up here, is there anything else you'd like to add, or any comments you'd like our audience to know about? Besides that, they can come see you in May and visit you and I.
Oh yeah. Well, first of all, I would say I have the hope that I can, travel by May, and because the last year I was not allowed to. So and I would say this is for everybody, right? I mean, I really believe and hope that we are going to see the end of this situation that we all been through, and we can get back to our life like it was before, or not, or let's say better, because we should have learned something, and especially I think we in our specific situation, in our specific market where we are, I think we should lead this kind of a change towards something better for everybody. Whatever, everybody's a patient somehow, sooner or later. So I think so. My wish is, first of all, to meet anyone that will see this interview, and in May, because I will be able to travel, and secondly, that really we will learn from what we have been through. That's my point. So thank you, Scott. I really enjoyed the discussion and the conversation, and appreciate it. So thanks for having me here again.
Well, thank you, Cristiano. One of the things I love about our industry is it is a small world. And if folks aren't able to make the meeting in May, how can they get in contact with you? We'll put a mention in the notes of the interview here. But how do you? Is it okay for people to reach out to you directly?
Absolutely. Yeah. You can put my email, mobile, and if just we'll meet at or come across to myself at the meeting, just stop by, and I will be delighted to speak to anyone.
All right, that's great. Thank you, Cristiano. I'll let you get back to your day, and
thank you very much, Scott.
Take care.
Thanks. Bye-bye.